But I would argue this tendency really starts to come to head with the work of L. Frank Baum, and particularly Oz, which is why I think the Oz the Great and Powerful is a really important example here. Is Baum, people today, when you say Wizard of Oz, you picture a plot, and you picture a plot of the MGM musical, which is part of the plot of the first of the 11 books that L. Frank Baum wrote that are set in the world of Oz. So for Baum, all of that is Oz, and much, much more, as we'll see. From the very beginning, the Oz books were created by a mixture of words and images. And Dinslow's illustrations for Oz were every bit as important in fleshing this out. Lots of things we think we know about Oz come only through the illustrations and not through anything that's in the text. So we're building up a world visually as well as through text. Neil, who followed Dinslow as Baum's illustrator, ends up illustrating 36 Oz books and wrote 3 or more of his own between 1904 and 1942. He's followed by Ruth Thompson, who wrote another 19 books, ending in 1939. And the book series continues at the rate of 1 book per year through 1963. So Oz is enormous. It has a rich history, it has rich mythology, zoology, different cultural traditions. The other thing is that Baum begins many of his books with grumblings of the fact that he has other stories he wants to tell, but the audience keeps demanding more information about Oz, and he's writing this book to address questions audience members have had. And as along the way, then he gradually pulls all of the other story worlds he was creating into Oz. So Oz becomes this mega text for everything that L. Frank Baum ever thought about. Now, L. Frank Baum's background is really interesting because before he wrote children's books, he designed window displays for department stores. And often window displays which situated objects into larger narrative context so that we had reasons to want to buy the new devices and gadgets that are coming out in the late 19th century. He's trying to make objects come alive through window displays. So he's very interested in space, in automata, and all of that figures back into the design of these books. But beyond that, L. Frank Baum is not satisfied simply to tell Oz in books. He also created a comic strip. Indeed, at one moment, there are 2 rival comic strips, one by Dinslow, the artist, the other by L. Frank Baum, the author, as they fight over who is entitled to tell Oz stories. But he also creates his own film production company. He creates stage musicals. And to top it all off, he goes on the lecture circuit on vaudeville and gives what he describes. He casts himself as the royal geographer or the royal historian of Oz. So thinking about being a geographer, a storyteller as a geographer is all about creating worlds and immersing ourselves in it and allowing us to think through what those worlds are about. And then on Oz, it becomes a platform over time by which any number of other authors have retold Oz, added to Oz, explored different dimensions of Oz, fleshed out elements of Oz. And that is true of the readers as well as authors. So the Oz books came out every year at Christmas time. It was a ritual from the turn of the century to the 1960s. In the 1960s, the Oz movie was on television every year at Thanksgiving time, and my class in school play acted the Oz stories for weeks on either side of that. It really shaped our imagination, waiting for Oz to reappear once again as a scheduled ritual. But while we as kids were playing with Oz, what we also were seeing was that hardcore fans were writing sort of nonfiction essays mapping various aspects of Oz. And I use the word map quite literally, because again, like those earlier 19th century novels, Baum is mapping this, and we see the map of Oz expand over time as he begins to build out his world. He begins to add more and more details to it, and what you see around the edges are those other fictional worlds that he just brought in to dialogue with Oz. And then not too long in, people start playing in the world of Oz, right? Board games become a way of immersing ourselves into the Oz fiction to engage with the story in a deeper way. And here we are, the connection of stories to games already present at this point.